Wellington's Weta workshop Cave is celebrating 10 years in business. More than 150,000 people visit the tourist attraction every year.
In 1987, Richard Taylor and Tania Rodger set up a workspace in the back room of their Wellington flat. It was a sheet of MDF balanced on a double bed. Richard had taught himself to sculpt in the mud from a creek behind a farm south of Auckland. His first professional work was carving dragons and giants out of margarine for hotel buffets. 38 years later, the company they built from that flat has won 5 Academy Awards and changed the way every major film studio on Earth makes movies. And at the height of their greatest project, hundreds of their digital soldiers looked at the battlefield in front of them and ran away. The name comes from an insect, a Wētā, one of the largest insects on Earth, found only in New Zealand, ancient enough to have shared the planet with dinosaurs. Richard Taylor chose it deliberately. He didn't want a slick name. He wanted something that said,
loads of people would park outside the workshop and we couldn't show them inside, so we wanted to open something that they could see and could be part of.
We are strange. We are from the edge of the world, and we are not going to do what everyone else does. That philosophy shaped everything that followed. Taylor met Tania Rodger when they were both 13. They became partners in life and in work, both pursuing the same obsession: making things, real things, physical things you could touch. In Wellington, after studying graphic design, Taylor got a job designing board games. He quit to make props and models. He heard that a producer was looking for someone to create a puppet for a New Zealand version of the British show Spitting Image. Taylor made a puppet of the producer himself and left it on the man's desk. He got the job. Over the next few years, working under the name RT Effects.
Special effects with Sir Richard Taylor, who's just back from promoting the new Hobbit movie overseas. He's never taken cameras through, I can't quite believe this myself, he's never taken cameras through the workshop until now.
Taylor and Rodger built puppets for television, props for commercials, and the occasional practical effect for whatever low-budget project needed one. They moved workshops 9 times. They were always running out of space. The work kept growing faster than the space to do it in. Then a young filmmaker living with his parents in Wellington saw their work on television and got in touch through a mutual friend. His name was Peter Jackson. The two of them hit it off immediately.
Peter Jackson, the writer, director and star of Bad Taste, is in Australia to ease his film onto the cinema-going public.
Taylor and Rodger worked with Jackson on Meet the Feebles, on Brain Dead, on Heavenly Creatures. By 1993, the operation had grown enough that they formalised it under a new name, Weta Workshop, with Jackson as a partner alongside Taylor and Rodger.
And we co-founded and run a company called Weta Workshop, which is a design and effects facility servicing the world's creative industries.
At the same time, a separate digital arm was created. It started with a single computer and 1 staff member. That company would eventually become Weta FX. 2 companies, 1 physical, 1 digital.
Ever since Weta Digital brought Gollum to life in Lord of the Rings, it's been the world leader in motion capture technology. Next came King Kong, then Avatar and Rise of the Planet of the Apes. And Steven Spielberg used it for the first time in The Adventures of Tintin. Now, Kate Rodger's been allowed to experiment with the technology on the condition she wears skin-tight lycra.
Working side by side in Miramar, Wellington, neither had any idea what was coming. In 1997, Peter Jackson sat down with Richard Taylor and Tania Rodger and told them he was going to make The Lord of the Rings, all 3 of them, back to back, in New Zealand. Nobody had ever done anything like it. 3 full-feature films shot simultaneously, set in a world that had to look completely real from every angle and at every scale. Armor that had to withstand years of filming. Creatures that actors had to interact with on set. Weapons that had to survive stunt work, close-ups, and wide shots in the same day. Miniature landscapes, bigatures they called them.
Now this is a familiar set. It's Elrond's chambers, and it's an exact copy of the one that we had in the Fellowship of the Ring. In fact, just over here on the balcony is where the Council of Elrond took place.
That had to be photographed from the right angle to look like an entire mountain range, and all of it had to be built by hand in Wellington. What Weta produced for The Lord of the Rings is almost impossible to comprehend as a list of numbers. 48,000 individual pieces, props, weapons, armor, creatures, created for the trilogy alone. 12.5 million plastic rings, hand-linked into chainmail, then electroplated to look like metal. 2 crew members linked so many rings that by the end of production, they had worn the fingerprints off their thumbs and index fingers. The chainmail in those films was so convincingly real that Weta had to invent an entirely new manufacturing process to produce enough of it. That same process was later used on Kingdom of Heaven, on the Chronicles of Narnia, on film after film that needed to look like the Middle Ages. They didn't just make things for the films, they invented new ways of making things, and we haven't forgotten about those fleeing soldiers yet. We'll get there. The practical effects of Weta Workshop were one half of the equation. The digital work was the other, and the digital side was where something happened that nobody had planned. Peter Jackson needed armies. Not extras, not stuntmen, hundreds of thousands of individual warriors, orcs, Uruk-hai, elves, men, all fighting simultaneously across enormous battlefields. Nothing in filmmaking had ever needed to create that scale before. There was no software that could do it. So Weta built the software themselves. A developer named Stephen Regulus wrote a program called Massive, Multiple Agent Simulation System in Virtual Environment. The idea was to give each digital soldier its own artificial brain, not a clone, not a copy. Each one would have its own programmed behaviors and reactions, responding individually to what was happening around it. The result, in theory, would be a battlefield that looked genuinely chaotic, because it was. When they ran the first test, 1,000 silver soldiers against 1,000 gold soldiers, something unexpected happened. Several hundred soldiers turned and ran, not toward the enemy, away from the battlefield, into the distance. The developers were confused. They checked the programming, and what they found was that some of the agents, given enough artificial intelligence to assess what was in front of them, had calculated that the odds of survival were too low. The program had made them choose to flee. Regulus told the story years later. They had given the soldiers enough intelligence that some of them effectively thought, not this. The team fixed the bug, but the fact that the bug existed at all said something important about what they had built. Something that seemed to make choices, something that behaved like it was alive. That software, created in Wellington by a New Zealand developer at a New Zealand company, went on to be licensed by visual effects houses around the world. It was used in King Kong, in Avatar, in Shang-Chi, in dozens of other films. The battlefield that Weta created for Middle-earth is still the model that the industry builds from. When the Fellowship of the Ring opened in December 2001, the world discovered what had been built in a suburb of Wellington. The reaction was not just enthusiasm, it was disbelief. Not disbelief that the films were good, disbelief that they existed at all. That a country of 4 million people at the bottom of the world, with no established film industry to speak of, had produced something that made Hollywood studios look like they had been doing it wrong. The Oscars that followed confirmed it. 4 Academy Awards for the Fellowship of the Ring alone. The Return of the King won 11. Richard Taylor won every time. Wellington stopped being a footnote. It became Wellywood, not as a joke, as a fact. What followed was an expansion that mirrored the films themselves. More staff, more space, more projects. King Kong, District 9, Avatar, Blade Runner 2049, Black Panther. The workshop built a life-size orc chieftain for a Madame Tussauds collaboration. They created the scale figures for Te Papa's Gallipoli exhibition, humans at 2.5 times their natural size. So detailed that visitors report feeling disturbed by them in a way they cannot quite explain. They built the sculptures at Wellington Airport, including the 13-metre golem that has been photographing travellers since 2012. The collectibles business grew alongside the films. Statues, prop replicas, limited editions, made by the same sculptors who built the originals, not licensed reproductions, the actual artists, applying the actual craft to a product someone could own. Richard Taylor is still in the workshop every day, but not everything built inside those walls was easy to look at. In 2020, a series of investigations by New Zealand media revealed workplace issues inside Weta: bullying, harassment, a culture that insiders described as a boys' club built on intensity, pressure, and the assumption that passion for the work excused everything else. Dozens of current and former staff spoke on the record. An independent review by Queen's Counsel Miriam Dean confirmed that the issues were real. Bullying, sexual harassment, inadequate protections. Weta launched a formal inquiry. changes were committed to. But for many of the people who raised concerns, the process felt incomplete. The company that had helped create some of the most beloved worlds ever put on film had also been a place where people were hurt. Those two things exist at the same time. They are both true. This is not a small detail. It is part of the story of what happens when a culture built on intensity and creative obsession doesn't build the same care into how people are treated as it does into how things are made. The same drive that produced 12.5 million hand-linked chainmail rings also created conditions where some people felt they had no voice. Wētā has work still to do. The industry it is part of has work still to do. In 2021, a different kind of announcement arrived. Unity Technologies, an American software company, purchased the technology arm of Wētā Digital, the tools, the software pipeline, the engineering team, approximately 300 staff, for $1.62 billion US. It was one of the largest technology deals in New Zealand history. Peter Jackson retained ownership of the production side. The digital VFX team rebranded as Wētā FX and continued operating. But the tools, including software developed over decades by people in Wellington for films shot in New Zealand, were now owned by an American multinational. 2 years later, Unity went through a corporate restructuring. The Wētā Digital division was wound down. Approximately 265 staff were laid off. Some were offered roles at Wētā FX, some were not. In New Zealand, the discussions about that deal are still running, about what it means when a country's creative technology gets acquired at that scale, about who benefits and who pays, about whether a $1 billion valuation makes something a success or just makes the price tag visible. Wētā Workshop itself, the physical side, the hands and the craftsmanship and the 5 Oscars, was never part of that transaction. Taylor and Rodger kept what they built. The margarine dragons, the puppet left on a producer's desk, the chainmail that wore away fingerprints. None of that was ever for sale. In 2025, a 15-meter illuminated sculpture called Manu Muramura was unveiled above the main concourse of Wellington Airport. It was developed in collaboration with Maori artist Manu Muramura, based on a legend about a local water spirit whose form ascended as a bird. The 12-year-old hobbit eagles that had hung there were gone. Something new had taken their place. Wētā Workshop had made it. The company that started on a sheet of MDF balanced on a double bed is still in Miramar, still in Wellington, still making things by hand that the rest of the world cannot work out how to make any other way. There are workshops in there right now where people are sculpting in materials that haven't been named yet, solving problems that don't have solutions yet, making things that haven't been thought of yet. Richard Taylor taught himself to sculpt from the mud behind a farm. Tania Rodger ran the business side from the beginning and still runs it now. The Wētā, that strange prehistoric insect, ancient and unglamorous and entirely New Zealand, is still on the door. The fleeing soldiers got fixed, but what they revealed was never forgotten inside those walls. That if you build something with enough intelligence, enough care, enough individual thought, eventually it starts to make choices of its own. That is what Wētā has been doing since 1987. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and drop your thoughts below. And as always, stay curious.